Hello, hello, hello. We are back. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm Andrea Paulton, Vice President of Marketing here at Techstars, and I'm your host for the day. I already see the conversation has started in the chat. So I see Augustus. Hi, hello. Simone. San Francisco's in the house. Go ahead, go join the conversation. Go in the chat. Tell us where you are coming in from. This is inside a Techstars Accelerator event. And we're super excited that you're here. We created this event for you because we want you to get a sneak peek into what it's like in a Techstars Accelerator program. We want to take you on this journey so you can learn about us, learn about the program, and get some tips along the way. And one of the good things about this, you're going to see the managing directors, the investment associates, and the program teams. So you can really, really get to know them. And then you can make a decision to apply, which we want you to do. So do me a big favor, Dario from Croatia and Twee from Baltimore, put in your LinkedIn address. Techstars is all about networking and connections. That way we can also connect to each other afterwards. And we are already going to get started. I am going to just read a couple more things in the conversation because I think more people are coming in. I see them coming. Eric Berlin, hello. I'm from Aalen, Germany. So we got Germany in the house. We got Virginia here. LA, I lived there for a while. New York City, good day. That's Australian, Alexander. Mercedes from New York City's in the house. Awesome. Love it. All right. So we're going to begin with a question that we get asked a lot. How to increase your chances of getting into an accelerator program. You guys ask us this constantly because obviously you're here, you want to be part of Techstars. How does this look? What do you need to do to increase those chances? So with us, we have Christine, Owen, and Nick to talk about this more in depth. Come on the stage, guys. Hello.
Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Everyone.
Meet you.
Go ahead and get started.
Right. We're going to kick it off here. I'm just going to facilitate as we go through. We're doing how to increase your chances getting into Accelerator, just like Andrea said. Hang on, there's three. Wait, are we doing introductions first? Okay, yeah, hang on. So just the break down the competition. We're going to talk about some basic information about you.
Oh,
I think you froze for a sec.
yeah.
I'll take over for Nick while he's frozen. The application is a basic 3 parts. 35 minutes like basic info, then 20 30 minutes about your company, which is where we will focus to make you sure you like really ace it and step out. And these tips will help you for like any VC, any accelerator app, not just us. And in step 3, you pick the top 3 accelerators you're interested in because we have multiple programs, and happy to chat more on that. And please do feel free to submit questions in the chat. We will try to answer as many as we can by the end of this. I will let Nick introduce himself when he's back online. So I'll go next. Hi, I'm Christine. I'm a senior investment manager for the New York City program, and I lead AI ML with my colleague curate for Techstars globally. I used to be an engineer, so love them. I run Engineer Village, which is a co-working day weekly for engineer founders in New York City. If you're in New York, come by. Like even if you're just visiting. And I run a female engineer group called FemBuild New York and SF. Before, I've been a founder, went through H of Zero, been CTO and software engineer at various companies. You guys can read the slides. And my fun fact is I got paid $1,000 save forwards on HBO Silicon Valley.
Love that. Yeah, that's great, Christine. Yeah, I'm Owen, originally from Dublin, Ireland. Despite my hat, I am the London program manager. Originally, like I said, originally from Dublin, spent some years in Amsterdam, background in accelerator programs, venture building in the kind of mobility, energy space, startup community building, hands-on experience scaling startups, including Zap, which I led in Benelux. And my fun fact is I built a rosé wine brand with an influencer, which was very good fun. did many things there, and it's actually a good wine. Cool. I think Nick was originally meant to kick off, Christine, but maybe
Sure.
what?
Yeah. Happy to.
Oh,
Next back.
Hey, I'm
Justin,
back.
go ahead.
I'm so
you're back.
All
sorry.
right.
We just the
Yeah.
internet cut out, and so we have no Wi-Fi. I'm on my cell phone Wi-Fi right now. I'm
It's
so sorry. That's
okay.
embarrassing.
We just did
Um,
intros, so why don't you do your
Yeah.
intro to wrap
Okay.
it up?
Yeah. So Nick Culbertson, I'm the managing director of Techstars AI Health Baltimore, powered by the Johns Hopkins University and CareFirst Blue Cross Blue Shield. I just joined Techstars relatively recently. First program was in March, and we're now running our second program here that started in September, and we'll run two a year for the next few years. Before joining Techstars, I ran a company called Pretendus that used AI to catch various types of fraud in hospital systems. Had successfully scaled that up to 30 million, raised over 50 million, and had a great exit late last year. And before that, I was a Green Beret in the military and also attended undergrad and 2 years of med school. I didn't finish, but at the Johns Hopkins University. So been in the health industry for a number of years and really excited about working with companies that are specifically in the AI health space. And then let me see. Okay, now slides are working for me again. Great. So I'm going to start just by two sections. First thing, before we jump into every section, the first tip I want to get about increasing your chances on the application: don't leave any sections blank. If you think that like, oh, problem doesn't address to us, like especially the first two blocks is problem and solution, it's so funny that we get like these really impressive applications and they don't even explain what their problem is. So immediately you're going to lower your chances by not filling out a specific section. So take the time and really think about every question. So the first thing is what problem you're looking to solve. The key about this is you're helping us define in your problem who your target audience is, what they're struggling with, and why they may be unsatisfied. You have to describe the problem in the absence of your company. Sometimes applications will go right into what they're doing or what they're solving in the space, but like really define what the status quo is. How does the world exist without your solution? What are things that are happening today? Don't be generic here. The more specific you can be, the better. And so we have two examples down here. Don't write people don't have an AI powered mousetrap, the thing that I built. Do write that mice droppings are leading cause of restaurant owners in New York City to receive a C or lower in their health grade. The reason that it's helpful to go on this level of detail is because as a reviewer of this application, I instantly know that your customer is restaurant owners. And so what we're thinking about, we don't look for just the best applications, but we look for that companies that we can help the most. And then I start to think about like, oh my gosh, we have a network of restaurants that we could connect you to, and how could we help helpful to accelerate this business? We know what kind of investors are investing in restaurant tech to support our company. So by defining the problem, you're really setting the tone for what your entire market is. And it's really honestly, it's one of the first things that we read when looking at applications. So super important. The opposite side of this is not the problem. After the problem, you have to then define the solution. The solution is not just a list of features, but it's or exactly what your tech is. You don't need to go into technical here. In fact, you should be focusing on the value proposition of your product and not the technical nuances of what you've built or what you've accomplished. So what is your company going to make to solve this problem? So describing just the value proposition of your product at a high level. So again, an example of that you don't want to write is like having a mousetrap AI that's innovative, disruptive technology that combines IoT, blockchain. You guys have seen Silicon Valley, like all the buzzwords. Like don't do that. The more specific you can see about what customers get out of your product and the return on investment they would get is super important. So in this example, Mousetrap AI uses cameras and sensors to identify a mouse and triggers peanut butter bait. Once the mouse is trapped, we'll send you a text message to dispatch technicians to remove it from your restaurant. And so I can look at a problem and solution slide to see like, this is the status quo. And based on what this company is doing, this is the problem that they're going to solve. So really, these are the big picture world view of what your company is doing. And then I'm going to kick it over to Owen to go into some more detail as we go through this application.
Yes, thank you so much, Nick. That was great. I'm going to take you through what may be the most deceptively important aspect of the application. Maybe it's something founders overlook sometimes, and that's the team. Ideas obviously shift and evolve over time, but the constant, and every company that you build will be you, the founders, and that's primarily what we're betting on. Investors often say that they'd rather back like a world-class team with a mediocre idea versus a mediocre team with a great idea. And the reason behind that sentiment is primarily because, founders, great teams can figure stuff out. They adapt, they learn, they keep going when things get tough. So when we're reviewing applications, what we're really asking is, why are you the team to take this forward and make this happen? What edge do you have, and what evidence have you shown that you can execute? And kind of some specific things that we look for would be obsession. So we look for founders who can't help but go deep into a topic. So that shows up not only in the company that you're working on, but also your life, whether it's like a niche interest, unusual achievement, or the way you throw yourself fully into things. Obsession is the fuel that should sustain you, and that should kind of come through in the application. And I'm happy to chat more about that after in questions if needed. Founder market fit, kind of self-explanatory. Why you? What personal experience, conviction, or insight do you have that would make you the right person to solve this? Team-wise, complementary strengths. So we're always looking for teams who, complementary strengths is self-explanatory. Teams with balance. We want ones where maybe one founder is technical, one is strong in product or sales, a wide-ranging team would be crucial. Resilience and determination is another crucial aspect as well. So startups are obviously really, really hard. And kind of what we're looking at here is, how much do you want this? Do you want it so much that you'll weather the storm, that you'll get through those tough days, wake up on those dark mornings to work hard? And I think a really important aspect as well, and something that has come through a lot of our programs, is openness and willingness to learn. So obviously Techstars provides capital, but the benefits of Techstars go well beyond that. And we really want founders who are coachable and who are open to learning, but are also strong enough to form their own opinions and convictions. And again, these things aren't abstract. In our most recent batch in London, Alexa, founder of Tova, which is a startup that's solving the kind of massive water scarcity challenge, is such a believer in the mission, and it radiates from her story and her knowledge and lifelong work in the space. Similar way, Alex, founder of Ovida, from our most recent batch in London, has a relentless drive to improve communication. And you can see that determination coming through across their applications, not just in the team section. It comes through in their understanding of the problem space, the market, the opportunity. And that's the kind of key thing I think I want to get across here, is like the team section is super important to demonstrate your background and your suitability to the problem. But I think the team, when we look at team, we look at every single aspect of the application. When we sit down with the best founders, we can ask about any part of the industry they're working in, and they'll have a strong point of view. They're not just early in surveying the space, they've gone really, really deep, because otherwise, why would they take the risk, and why would we take the risk in investing? So when filling out your application, don't just list your CV, tell us why you're the right people, why you want it so badly, and how you'll make it work. And at the end of the day, that's what we're really investing in. It's not just your idea, your drive, your resilience, it's everything. So yeah, I think that's everything. I'll pass it over to Christine for the next part.
Awesome. Did you have traction? Oh yeah. So basically, like, you want to stand out as much as possible. So obviously, and like, I think the people are always thinking like revenue in terms of traction, like list that. I will say that what investors are looking for are more like the growth, like that the sweet spot is 20% month-over-month growth. So definitely include your growth rate if it's good. Obviously, if you're a bit earlier, like think about ways that you can validate as fast as possible, like not just for your application, but for your business, that people actually want your product. Like, can you get paid LOIs once you hit a certain, so like people are already like quantified LOIs where it's like, we will pay you this much if you build this, then you know you have a certain amount of money as soon as you build it, instead of just like building it and being like, oh, I actually don't know if people are going to buy this product, right? I know some people can do like waitlist numbers if they like truly cannot find other ways to do traction. I don't personally love waitlists because like the conversion tends to not be great, especially if it's old or just like not waitlist folks in your profile, like in your target demo. But like something's better than nothing, right? So figure out what you can do even in the next couple of weeks to like validate and really show like people actually want this solution you're building. So click on the app. Something I commonly see. So when I see this when we say this question, like how will you make money? It's really more asking like what is like your business model, and then like what is your market size. So something we commonly say at Techstars when we evaluate companies is we're looking at team. So like we're so pre-seasoned. Team is a top 3, but then it's market, product, and then traction. So market really matters because if there's a company with like equally great teams and there's one with way more revenue but the market's a lot smaller, and another one with like way less revenue but the market's much bigger, I much rather invest in a bigger market because I know I can work with them and get them to like hit higher revenue numbers like very quick, much more quickly, simply because the market's bigger. And something you need to think about with just like really basic VC math and like how VCs make money is they are trying to make each investment they have return their entire fund size. So this is like typically why if you try to pitch, like you're trying to raise a pre-seed 2 million, you want to pitch probably a fund of like less than 150 million size. I'm gonna not get too off topic here, but the point is that you're going to want to go after a market that's at least like a couple billion, because you're not going to get that full billion. They usually want to invest in someone that can be a unicorn company. And even Series A, they usually want to see market of at least 20 billion, right? So that's like the issue. Usually I see like, they're like, our market's like 400 mil. And I'm like, that's great for you, and you could make a ton of money off your business, but I won't be able to make money off investing in it. And the other side I see is people are like, our market's like $3 trillion because the entire world will use this B2B SaaS product or something. So try to do something a little bit in between and realistic. So what I like to really show is a bottoms up TAM, not top down. So what bottoms up mean is like you calculate it off your existing business model, right? So for this like mousetrap idea that Nick was talking about, let's say you charge a monthly subscription of $100 to the restaurant, right? Like we don't really care you're going to break even in 3 years because you making 10 million AR, we're not going to return our investment on that. But if you like say, okay, cool. So that means we make $1,200 a year on subscription. And there's a market of 750K restaurants in the US. So that would be like 750 million possible ARR. And then with 1.5 million restaurants in Europe, that would be possibly like 1.8 billion revenues. So that's like a 2.5 billion TAM. That gets a little bit more interesting. I would actually want the TAM to be a little bit bigger usually to invest. And something I would like to argue is that not all restaurants are going to need this mousetrap. Some of them are like Michelin star, like maybe like have really high grade cleaning. So I would actually narrow down the scope of how many restaurants you're actually looking at who would actually buy these AI mousetraps. Or maybe, they're little bodegas and they don't care about cleanliness, right? So I would actually narrow down this to be more realistic. I basically covered this, but it's very basic. Bottoms up TAM is like your ACV, like how much potential annual revenue you can make per customer times your number of potential customers. So just show that so we can understand how big your market size can be. Cool. So, last, competitors, right? Okay. Who are your competitors or might become them, right? So really make sure to do both direct and indirect and potential. So, and also something, please make sure to include both large companies and new startups. Because if you're just saying incumbents and you're not mentioning startups that got funded like the past year or two in this space, I'm worried you don't understand your competitive landscape and you're not looking to see how you're differentiating from them. If you have 0 startups that got funded the past 2 years in this space, I'm a little worried that the market isn't really there or else others will be building in it. So that's the reason I want to see that. I know a VC who like his sweet spot, he's like, if I see 2 or 3 star competitors in the past 2 years, perfect. I'm going to talk to them. If there's like 0 or there's like 10 plus, I'm worried that it's too crowded and it's going to be hard to break in. Or if it's 0, like I'm worried there's no market for this. So that's the way to think about things. So just do your homework there. And then when you write out competitive advantage, it's really about like, for a lot of products, if you want to get them to switch from their a worse product to yours has to be 10 times better. So like, why is yours 10 times better? So maybe it's like, okay, with a cheaper thing, I'm gonna be like very careful. If you say it's exactly the same, but it's just cheaper, that's just a race to the bottom to me because the other person can just lower their price and beat you, especially if they're a big company. But if there's something where you're like, our tech costs are like way less than them because of something we did, so that's why we can charge less. That's really exciting, right? Like, because that's cheaper for you, but your margins are still great. Maybe you're 4 times faster. Maybe fundamentally, like, there's this other company was built before this tech boom, so they're built on old tech, so yours is going to be better. Like, what is your defensibility really, like, that prevents both big companies with way more money engineers than you to come in? So really think about that defensibility, and what's something that will protect you over time as you grow. So like new startups that pop up that can like go faster than you, they won't be able to take you down. Trying to give a good moat example for you guys. I think a very obvious one, obviously, is like for Uber. It's like the car network that takes time to build that car network. So I built a new Uber tomorrow. I wouldn't be able to beat them very quickly because I would have to slowly bring on, like so many drivers to match that speed they have for getting you a car. Our example will be Clay.com. That's a little popping up. They're a B2B. They're basically a B2B personalized sales tool. They have integration plans with like 100+ providers, and it takes time to close these contracts with each provider formally. So that's like you can't catch up overnight there. So that's another example. Anyways, we have 8 minutes left. Oh, just to know, like each program we select 8 companies total for the program, but you can apply to multiple programs, and we do swap to see if there's a fit. But since we have 8 minutes left, I'd love to get into questions and answer as many questions as we can. So feel free to leave them in the chat, and we'll all take turns going through them. So I'm just gonna dig through.
Someone asked if we go back to the TAM slide. They
Yeah,
didn't have a question. I've been trying to answer questions as long as we go, but keep them coming. But someone wanted to see the TAM slide, so maybe leave this up. And if you have a
yeah, I'll
question,
leave
go ahead and let
that
us
in.
know. Victoria just asked, quick question: what's your advice on giving founders when they are starting a direct competitor in the face on a stage at a conference, almost a copy and paste, and they currently have better backing on the marketing side, so like Instagram endorsement, like Justin Bieber. What do you think about that, Christine? Basically the
Yes,
same, but they have some kind of great backing by an influencer.
I would say think about your edge. Like what are they like? What target customer are you going? Maybe you're going after a different target customer. Are they having a different initial wedge? Like just think about that. Don't get intimidated by them having more funding or this. If you're truly different, if you are exactly the same, you should be worried. Like that's an issue of your business. But that's what I would say. I've seen this question quite a few times. Like, can solo founders get in?
Yeah, let's touch on
Um,
that. There's a lot of these questions.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. I mean, it's not impossible to get into a Techstars program as a solo founder. I think there will be questions from other, from us asking you about, where potential gaps are. But yeah, curious to hear your perspective, Nick.
I think common sense here. It's not necessarily good or bad, but there are pros and cons. So if you're like, I had two solo founders in the last program, and I one in the current program, and they're phenomenal. They're great because they have deep domain expertise and they have the skill set necessary to do the work. And they've also surrounded themselves with advisors and mentors to build. And I have confidence that they'll be able to build a team and to recruit. Now, if I got a solo founder apply with deep domain expertise, but is missing skills that the company needs, that's part of
Yeah.
its core business. So, for example, a classic one is a physician that's like, I have an idea for an app. But I just need to hire a CTO to like build the app. I've never built an app before. I don't know how to vibe code. I don't know how to code. I have no idea what I'm doing. Techstars will do that for me. That's not good. You need to have the skill set necessary to build your business because you're ultimately responsible for your business. And that application will be hurt by that solo founder. So it's not solo founder good or bad. It's, do you have the right skill set on the team to be successful in the early stages of your business? What do you think, Christina? On
Yeah, I think the thought I have here is look, we are telling you what an ideal business looks like, right? 2-person team, 1 sales, 1 technical, usually, like huge market, super differentiated customers, your traction's going up into the right 20% month over month. That's ideal company. Not many of those exist, or else all the VCs would have just funded them today, right? So like the thing is, you're just trying to minimize as many reasons as you can to say no, for VCs to say no to you. And one of them is not having a co-founder. And the main reasons are because building a business is really hard. And you're gonna have down days, and having a co-founder who's as in it with you will really help you keep going. To having complementary skill sets divide the work, because when you fundraise, like the CEO has to 100% fundraise, and the other person has to do everything else, like product sales, like everything. So you don't want the revenue to be dropping while you're fundraising. Three, I would say it shows the ability of the CEO to be able to recruit people to their team, which means that they at least convince one person to really care about this problem market, which means they can convince customers, they can convince VCs. So that's the reason we prefer two co-founders, but I have invested in solo founders. Yeah.
Awesome.
Question. Oh, sorry, go on, Nick, if you want to.
No, I was going to bring up another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, there's an interesting question here. So how early stage can a potential successful applicant be with regard to traction? Would love to hear your guys' perspective on that, because I think it's an interesting one. We have a variety in our programs, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we talked about traction again, and obviously the more traction, the better, and the more growth. What I'm pushed for is like, look, you're part of thousands of applications. So if you're just like, hey, we have zero traction, it's going to be really hard to stand out to show that you remotely have validated this is a real problem that people need. So that's why I always push, like, look, apps aren't closing until end of November. You have plenty of time. You can get traction next week if you wanted to. Anything to validate this, like try to get quantified LOIs. Try to get folks who are at least retaining well if they're beta users, right? Coming back every day. Try to get anyone who will pay, even if you're giving them a 90% discount for being an early customer. Like I want to, like, validation is better, not just for me, but for you as a founder, to make sure you're not building in the wrong direction.
The key that Christine said right there is the validation. I can tell you an absolute no for applications is if you submit, you can be pre-revenue. Lots of pre-revenue companies get into Techstars. What's unacceptable is if you have not talked to a single potential customer. If you're like, I have this idea and I'm going to build it and like I'm raise a bunch of money and you've like interviewed zero. So one thing you can put in a traction section is you can say, I've talked to 100 potential customers, 80% of them said willingness to pay. I have, a sign up of wait list. Like traction's always about upping the ante. And as Christine said, the more the better. If you have revenue, that's like golden. But if you have like LOIs, that's almost as good. If you have like MOUs, that's almost as good. If you have like verbals, that's almost as good. If you've done lots of interviews and have lots of interview data, that's really good. The best chance is to be higher on that stack, but don't think because you have revenue that you can't get in. So another question for you, Christine. For competition, would you consider homegrown personal tools as competition in a niche market when users make their own tools to solve the problem? And then what were 4 words in the Silicon Valley? I'm Pied Piper.
Wait, that was one of my 4 words. How did you know that? I am like very impressed right now. Dude, my scene was very like small. You'll blink and miss me. But okay, yeah, great job. I guess you get office hours with me. DM me after this. But to answer your question about the homegrown tools, yeah, for sure. Because like I'm assuming you can be 10 times better than these homegrown tools. Because like someone's doing it on the side. So as long as you're better, of course, yeah, and because you're going to stay ahead.
My startup, our number one competitor was Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
As long as you can prove you're gonna beat them, I guess is the key.
Exactly.
We have 1 minute left.
Providing that value, people will pay for you instead of the homegrown tool. Yeah.
Exactly. It looks like we're on time. Maybe we've time to squeeze in one more question. I can see Andrea's come in. Oh, you're on mute, Andrea.
Just real quick, short question, short answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think a question came in there that was, maybe it's a good way to end as well. Our application's open, and they are open for all of our programs that are running in the spring. Actively encourage you to apply, use exactly what we discussed here. I believe the recording is going to be shared after, Andrea. So yeah, definitely encourage you to apply.
Awesome. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Christine. And yes, apply. Um, he owned to tell everybody, and Jessica and I've been talking in the chat with you. This is recorded. You will get an email afterwards. You will get the full recording. So now let's talk about the next subject, another thing that we get asked all the time. And this is something that we actually teach you inside the Accelerator program. It's how to secure fundraising. That's always a difficult one. And so we are going to talk about the investor process a little bit, and it's a mystery to some. So here to demystify that are two powerhouse managing directors, Andres and Georgie. So please join me on the stage.
Hey y'all, how's it going?
Hello, all.
All right, get started, Andres and Georgie. Thanks for being here.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today. Today we're going to be sharing 4 very counterintuitive tips that we teach our founders during program that help them significantly increase their chances of fundraising and reduce the time it takes to get there. The short version, and we're going to go through each of them, but the short version is number 1 counterintuitive tip is you have to expect over 99 plus rejections. Don't give up too early. Number 2, CEOs, you're going to have to quit managing your startup while you fundraise. Number 3, you're going to overkill in preparation because 80% of the work happens before the first meeting. And number 4, there's a way to engineer scarcity and momentum so that you can create FOMO for investors, which they don't like, but they always fall for.
And Andres, just before we jump in, maybe we'll just give a very quick introduction so people know why they should maybe listen to some of our advice that we'll give in the next few slides. So both you and I have raised venture as founders. We've both been investors in VC funds, and we've kind of gone through the pain of it ourselves. So why don't you go first and I'll follow you.
Yeah, so I run the New York program, and I went through the New York program as an entrepreneur in 2011. I raised VC funding for 3 companies, but it wasn't until I saw how to raise VC funding or how over 100 companies raised their first couple $1,000,000 that I started noticing the patterns. And we figured out what are the 4 things you can do that are not intuitive to make it easy.
Yeah, totally. And I share your views, Andres, a lot of things when it comes to fundraising. So by way of very quick introduction, I'm Georgie Smithick. I am the managing director of Techstars in London. So I've been a founder of 3 companies and have raised over 12 million of venture capital and have also gone the bootstrap route as well. And then I was a VC as an investor at a multi-stage fund called Target Global, which is one of the largest funds in Europe, doing everything from pre-seed to late-stage pre-IPO. So I have seen like a lot of rounds, a lot of different sizes, and really learned there the other side of the table. So actually how investors see founders' level of prep. So I'm really passionate about what we're about to talk about because I think honestly, 90% of founders on their first fundraise don't get this information. And if they did, they would be set up for a lot more success. So over to you, Andres.
All right, so let's start with the very difficult reality of fundraising. As you can see here, from 2020 to today, the amount of money and deals getting done has dropped significantly compared to 2020. There are, at any given moment, over 20,000 startups that are created, and you might have 5,000 of them get funded within a year. That means that the vast majority of them fail at getting funded. And so what the other startups are doing, whether they compete with you directly or not in your market, they are competing directly for venture capital dollars. If you do what most companies do, you're not going to raise money. And so one of the things that we encourage our entrepreneurs to do is that when you go into that fundraising mode, you're not going to do 10 calls, 15 calls and think that that's it. You can expect that you're going to convert maybe 1 to 4% of the calls that you have into actual checks. And that's maybe. So if you do less than 100 calls, you're going to have less than 1 or 4 people to actually convert. A lot of the companies that you see the announcements, at least that you see on Techstars, on LinkedIn, where this company raised $7 million, this company raised 5, 10, all of those were the result of hundreds of rejections. I have a startup that for their first $3 million that they raised, they had 300 calls. For their and in the end, their pre-seed round was oversubscribed. And then within a year or so, they did their A round. And this time they only had to have 150 calls. So don't give up. At call number 30, you're going to get demoralized. At call number 50 or rejection number 50, you are going to get good at it. And then you're going to love it. And this is just going to be like playing a sport, like playing a game. So that's first tip. Be ready for over 99 rejections. Georgie, back to you.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so if you've been following that, if you think about how many funds you need to speak to, as Andrea spoke about, it is critical that you have the time and the focus to do this. So what so many founders underestimate is that this is a 200% full-time job. Like, there is no going to conferences during this time unless that's exactly where you're going to go and meet your investors. There is no running the company and being an operator in anything else, or coding, or doing anything other than fundraising. Because if you do not pay that attention and time, you are going to miss so many of the things that you're going to need to do, such as the super quick follow-up, the back channeling, tweaking your deck to feedback that you've gotten from, maybe a rejection, and so on. You just cannot underestimate this. So what we say at Techstars is you need to communicate to your entire team. This is the period that I think I'm going to be raising. Also put buffer in that because it might take you longer, and you need to clear your schedule. You need your team to be on hand to help you out, to take things off your plate. We really recommend communicating to your any angels, your full team, your family, your partner, because this is a really, really intense, pressurized time, and you need to clear the decks. You're essentially like a pro fundraiser at that. That's all you're doing. We have seen the companies who do not do that, and we have seen that it almost never works out. The correlation between those who are successful or not, it is all in the preparation and the focus. Okay, so then that goes to the next one, which is on the preparation. So this is, I just think it is so true, and again, misunderstood. Most founders go out to raise before they're ready, because as founders, we're impatient, right? We want to move super quickly, and we want to already be in the market. And we're used to, say, for example, creating an MVP and just putting it out into the market and seeing what happens and iterating as you go. But you don't really want to do that when it comes to fundraising. 80% of the work happens before you actually go to your first meeting. Why is it like that, right? Why can you not iterate on the fly? And also, you're really busy and you're perfecting your MVP and your product, and investors should know that. So, the fact that your deck is a little bit sloppy, you didn't have the time, that's what a lot of founders sometimes think. But the reality is that investors have such little data on you, right? And they don't have very much time to make up their mind about you. And what they need to see is that you are really serious. You are a serious person who is serious about this business, and you are going to take their capital and their time really seriously, right? Number one. And one of the ways that they can measure that is, are you taking your fundraising really seriously? And is that demonstrated through the quality of your materials, how you show the data room, how you tell the story, all of these things. So you need to have a really high bar on your prep work. You really want to make sure that you are doing the very best job of telling your story, that you've got all the materials, that you don't have a lag when they ask you for a follow-on deck. They should never ask you that. Everything is already created and you send it immediately when you leave the meeting. You can send the data room. The data room is already compiled. It's thoughtful. It's well presented. These are really critical things. As an investor, previously when I was doing seed, late stage seed, I would really judge a team based on how much detail they'd put in. And the best teams kind of delighted us. I'd look at it and go, wow, if this is the quality of a data room that they're putting together for their round, I can't wait to see the user experience that they're going to create. I can't wait to see how they're going to delight their customers. And I had real belief and confidence that they were strong executors and operators. So that's the kind of people I want to give my money to. If it's kind of a bit sloppy and there's mistakes here and there and some detail is missing, it starts to raise questions. Can these guys really execute? So do the work. 80% goes into it. Take a look at a couple of the things that we recommend in the data room, and really prep beforehand. Over to you, Andres. You're on mute.
And this is just a small example of what a data room that raises capital looks like. They use Notion. You can use Google Drive. You can use Dropbox. The tool doesn't really matter. It just needs to be very, very complete. Now on to creating that scarcity and momentum in the round. You can have exponential growth and everybody's talking about you and everybody wants to come into and invest in your company. If you don't have that, you need to kick that off, and it can definitely be engineered. One of the very non-intuitive things that you must not do is try to take meetings as you get them. So if your friend introduces you to an investor, the natural thing is to tell that investor, hey, investor, are you free tomorrow? When are you free? Let's meet. Don't do that. What you want to do is all the introductions that you want to get from investors, the introducers, have them send those emails at the same time. Those requests, those forwardable emails at the same time. And when the investors start booking with you, try to compress all those meetings so that instead of having 10 meetings over the span of 2 months, see if you can corral them together and you can have 10 meetings over the span of half a week. On the left here in this graphic, we see what we want you to have, a tight process with calendar density. On the right, you see what we don't want you to have, which is a loose process. When you have a loose process, you give the investors the free option to not give you a decision right now. And our goal is to remove the free option. And when they ask you, hey, Andres, how much of the round have you committed? Do you have a lead investor? You can answer, well, we just got started. And of course, we want to close as quickly as possible. But to give you an idea, we have 40 meetings lined up this week. Whether subconsciously or consciously, that investor knows that they have competition and they're going to be prioritizing you. So that's what you want to do with calendar density. And it's very easy to do just by coordinating your introducers or even cold emails that they go out around the same time. And you can also, if you use Calendly or any other booking tools, you can also organize those booking tools so that they happen in a constrained period. And yes, you do need a data room for pre-seed because the $15,000 companies that are only showing up with a deck and an email or a very simple data room, they're competing with the other 5,000 companies that do get funded, including hundreds of Techstars companies that are over-prepared when they show up to an investor. All right, here is how we're going to escape the trap of you're too early and we want to wait to see more traction, which is sometimes confusing because that investor will tell you you're too early. And then the next day you'll see on the cover of some business magazine that they funded $10 million of a company with no revenue, no product. And you're like, wait, but I thought I was early. I thought you invest in pre-seed. So here is a way to create scarcity in your round. So what we have in this graphic, I want you to look at the bottom two green colors. It's a light green color and a normal green color, I guess. If we want to raise, let's say, $1.75 million or $2 million, we go to market with less because we want your round to be oversubscribed. If you go out to raise $4 million and you tell investors, I have $1.5 million committed or $2 million committed, it still looks like you're undersubscribed and the round might not close. But if you go to the market saying we're going to raise $1 million and we already have $750K committed, now it looks like the round has momentum. There is scarcity. There's not that much room left. So in this example, we're going bottoms up in this upside down pyramid. And let's say I'm an entrepreneur and I'm meeting with Georgie. Georgie asked me, how much money are you raising? I will say, I'm raising $750K at $7 million cap. But for the first $250K, I am going to allow only a couple of checks at $250K, and we're going to reduce the cap to $5 million in order to incentivize those investors that invest with conviction, that don't need a lead, and that want to get the reward of coming in before everyone else. After the $250K special is done, we'll go back to the normal $7 million cap. So now there's scarcity. As an investor, Georgie could wait for somebody else to be the lead or for me to have more of the round committed, but it is no longer a free option for her to wait. If she waits, the difference is of $2 million in the valuation. So I'm incentivizing Georgie to not wait and to come in with a $50K check or maybe the full $250K check at that $5 million valuation. Once the $250K is done, I update everybody I'm having conversations with, because remember, you have that calendar density, you're running a very tight process. And I say, now there's only $500K left. When you have the $500K remaining fulfilled, you will update everyone and you'll say, we have met our fundraising goal. Our fundraising goal was of $750K. We've met it. But because remember, you have 100 meetings scheduled, we have decided that because we have so much demand for a round, demand which you engineered, that we have decided to extend the round a little bit further, and we're going to raise an extra $1 million at a $10 million valuation. And a lot of VCs will say, oh, but why am I paying a $10 million valuation when yesterday was $7 million? Which is a funny question to ask of a venture capitalist that should understand supply and demand. But what they're really saying is, why am I paying more today than yesterday if nothing has changed in your business? Well, something has changed. There is more demand for shares of my company than there is supply. And most of the time, and in the cases where I've worked with founders, 100% of the time, even though the investor might not like the fact that they're going to be paying a $10 million valuation versus a $7 million valuation because some investor got it earlier, the round has so much demand and momentum and it's oversubscribed that they will agree to do the 10 million valuation. And so this is a simple way for you to raise the amount of money you wanted to raise, but remove the free option for investors to say, let me know when you have the round committed, more than 50%. Let me know when you have a lead investor. And you're incentivizing those investors that don't need to wait for the stars and the planets to align, like Techstars. We don't wait. We can just back you. We invest with conviction at the lower valuation. And those are the 4 non-obvious tips. We have a couple of minutes if there's questions from the audience.
Cool. So shall I, Jess, I'll read out one here. Okay, cool. So someone has asked, do we need a data room for pre-seed? Andres, you want to take that?
Yes. If you're what I jokingly tell portfolio companies is if they're not a Techstars founder, then it's okay if they only show up with a pitch deck and a very flimsy data room, because the Techstars founders are going to be prepared. And if you're raising a pre-seed and you're a Techstars founder, VCs already know that when they're meeting with a Techstars founder, they're meeting with the most prepared founders in the market. And they come prepared as if it's a pre-seed, they come prepared with the level of preparation as a seed round or an A round. if it's an A round, they come prepared as if it was a C round, because there is a lot more companies going after those investors that are not as prepared as you are.
Yeah. So maybe we can take this one together, Andres, because there's lots of points that we'll think of. So a question is around the key points that should be noted between the 100 calls, right? So as you're stacking the calls and you've done your first 10, they've said how to understand where they should improve, right? So what are the key things that they should be looking for feedback on? I'll start and I will say, look, one part of it is the fact that actually you also need to warm up, right? When you start telling your story and your vision, your mission, without practice, often, there will be parts of it that aren't landing, and you really will start to learn in your first conversations, okay, I need to tweak that. Actually, that part's maybe a bit too long-winded or that kind of thing. So part of it is actually just warming it up, right? Which is why we always say, stack it in a way that the people that you don't really want to invest, they might be slightly off target. They're your first calls, right? Because you never should put your absolute ideal investors in your first kind of 10 calls. They should come later on. I think really understanding whether people understand what you are building, if they get excited by it, because if you come off and go, God, 10 people just did not get excited by it, maybe there's an issue with your storytelling. So I'll hand you over to Andres. I've got loads more thoughts, but I know you will too.
Yeah, so if you go into 100 calls and you get rejected 99 times, I don't want you to waste the 99 rejections. I want you to use them to your advantage. And you win, even if you don't get money. You win if you understand the real objections that the investor is having, that they probably won't say unless you pull it out of them, so that for your next call, you be more prepared. A simple question to ask, again, if I'm raising money from Georgie, I would say, Georgie, from after everything I've told you and all the companies you've seen in my space, what do you think might be the one or two things I might be underestimating about my market or my product? And that's a way to invite Georgie to really tell me what she's thinking. Another way for me to get Georgie to share with me what she thinks about my team, because they won't tell you, oh, I think you're a bad founder. I would say, Georgie, after everything I've told you and everything you've learned about the team, who do you think should be my next key hire after we close around? Whatever she says, it's probably going to be around the lines of where she thinks we have a gap. And all of these questions that I ask go beyond how much money do you invest? Do you take a board seat? What is your ownership target? Do you like what we're building? And instead, get you the point of view of the investor that you can use to build a better narrative for your next call with another investor.
Yeah, I think, look, the other thing that I would say is to Andres' point here on gaps. So investors spend a lot of time working on the boards of lots of different companies. Typically, the good ones have a lot of experience and they have a bird's eye view, and they will have often an ability to see things that you don't, because maybe they've seen it before, or because they're coming at it with a fresh perspective. So when you have your first kind of 10, 15, 20 calls, as Andrea says, they can kind of spot gaps that you haven't thought of. And that is a great opportunity for you to suddenly, go out to your team, have that discussion, and then for the next actually be on the front foot with it rather than the back foot with the messaging. And you should see investors as this is a great learning experience as well as converting it. But you need to be super agile, really deep listeners in those first calls, because you can learn so much that will help you then by call 20 to convert the investor that you really want, right? So another question here is any particular favorite platforms for the data room? I personally love Notion because I think you can design really well on it. I prefer it to anything else, but anything that you feel comfortable and that you can kind of show that you've made an effort, I would say. Andres? Oh, he's jumped off. I know that he loves Notion too. Jess, how are we doing on time? Yeah, we're good. Okay. We've had another question here around valuations and how much you should raise, and how valuation is determined. So look, what we say is that you want to have at least 18 to 24 months of runway. So that is what you should be raising for, because if it takes often sort of 6 months to fundraise in total, right, between the preparation and getting out there, and then by the time that the money is wired. So you don't want to be doing that too frequently. So you should have at least 18 to 24 months in the bank. So what you need to do is work backwards. What do you think you're going to need for that time? What is your head count? What is your, all your costs, and put that in. And that is actually typically without revenue expectations, because revenue can take longer than you expected and so on. So without any revenue coming in, what do you need for 24 months? With regards to valuation, I think a really important thing that you need to realize is the market sets the valuation. VCs will actually set the valuation, and it will be based on the kind of comparatives which are happening in the market at the moment. If you're an AI company and it's in a very hot space, the valuations are going to fluctuate, and they're probably going to be quite high. It really depends on what is hot at the moment. The best way to have as much agency as possible on your valuation is with this one key thing: be oversubscribed. Your number one job is to get as many term sheets as you can get, right? Do not negotiate term sheets before they're in. You just want your term sheets in. And if you have multiple term sheets, you have put competition into the round, which means that you have leverage to negotiate your terms. But until you have leverage, until you have multiple commitments, multiple investors really interested, and by interested means they've actually issued a term sheet, not that they've said this is interesting, let's have another call. That is not a term sheet. Once you have multiple term sheets, you can then push up the valuation. So don't sweat the valuation in your first meeting. Don't say what valuation you're raising at. Just say how much you are, and all of that will follow. I hope that's helpful. Time for one more question, Jess?
Hey, Georgie, you can do one more question. Yes.
One more. Okay, cool. So question is around these tactics and whether they work as well with angels writing smaller checks, and if there's any differences in the approach between the two. So look, a lot of angels are, typically we see two different types of angels. One is maybe a high net worth that made money, not from maybe tech or tech a very long time ago, and they're operators, and they're not kind of institutional investors. So they're not thinking as much about, market size and all these things. They're way more interested in who you are as a person, as a team. They might be technical because they were, a co-founder of something. And so they want to get really into your product. Often they're way more interested in how you're going to build a business and who you are as a team. So I think you can expect more casual conversations, and often they really want to be on the journey with people that they like, and so really getting them involved in the kind of the mission and so on, I've seen works really well. What you will see, some other angels are later stage investors who actually, they typically invest at Series B or Series C, but they want to have access to great companies early on, so they'll write checks. With those type of investors, for example, at Index or Excel, you'll see some of them write a pre-seed check. They'll be typical investors, right? They'll want to understand like your numbers and the market size and things. So you just have to understand who you're speaking to and what's their background. But the tactics are not the same. The big thing that's different is that you can expect a bit more of a casual approach with angels, and you don't often need a deck to talk to angels. You can just meet them for a coffee, a beer, a walk, and just tell them in a more casual setting what you're building.
Awesome, Georgie.
And the last thing I'll say on that one is get angels first, because if you can get one or two angels who signal something, it really helps to get VC on board. Thanks.
Thank you, Georgie, so much. Awesome job. Next up, we have Brad, Dave, and Curdy. They're going to talk about the 10 learnings from Techstars startup founders. So bye. Thank you, Georgie, and welcome Brad, Dave, and Curdy to the stage.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, good morning. Hello, everyone. All right. Brad, you want to kick us off? We'll do intros, and then we will go into what we've learned from the hundreds of founders we've worked with.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet everyone. My name is Brad Schnitzer. I'm the investment director for North America, and I manage our Northwestern Medicine program here in Chicago. I'm also an angel investor, a limited partner in Long Jump, and have helped founders all across early stage here in our ecosystem here in Chicago. I also started Chicago Startup Week. So if you're in Chicago, definitely come to that. That's one of the largest free startup events in Chicago. And then I mentor here at 1871 and the University of Chicago's Polsky Center. I will pass it off.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Curdy Levy. Going on my 6th year here at Techstars. I'm getting ready to run my 9th cohort. I've run a number of different accelerators, including 3 in the Midwest, 1 in crypto, 2 in Boston, and now I'm running the Anywhere Accelerator, which is our remote first accelerator, doesn't have a home city. I've been in the space in working with startups for quite a while. I've run the Iowa Agritech Accelerator. I also have been a founder, both entrepreneurial and then also founded my own advisory firm. And I'm an angel investor and a mentor for all the founders out there. So I'll pass it over to Dave.
Thanks, Curdy and Brad. Tough intros to follow. I'm Dave Cass. I'm the Managing Director of Techstars Workforce Development. I also have quite a journey at Techstars. I was a founder a long time ago now. I think it was 12 years ago. And I've been a mentor since. So if any of those perspectives as a investor or alumni or mentor, life as a recovering founder is helpful to you, I'll try to work in those perspectives in any way that's helpful.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have, and by no means is this limited, but we have at least 10 areas that we've seen founders, successful founders really do well at. So we're going to go through those and have little discussions around each of them. So drum roll, number 10. Some of the most successful founders we've seen out there have been obsessed with the problem and not the solution. And I know many of you are sitting out there today because we've seen this from so many founders with your solution ready. It's really, really important to know that, yes, you may have a solution out there, but it has to be rooted in what the problem is. One of the most successful companies I've worked with, they started with a problem of, you know what, healthcare is broken and people aren't getting the treatment they want. And the number of different pivots that they made to address that solution has really brought them to the point now where they're at unicorn status. So really, really focusing on what is the problem out there is so, so important. Having the ability and listening to the customers every day and having the ability to maneuver and listen to what your customers are asking for is so, so important, and really remaining flexible. So, I just want to open this up. Dave, Brad, any examples that you've seen that are really valuable here on obsessing with the problem and not the solution?
Yeah, happy to. And I'll comment too and say sometimes this theme can feel at odds because we're looking for people and founders with deep conviction who are also deeply flexible. So that can be an emotional tension. Where I come back to quite a bit with the investor lens is on the lived experience. People come in who have lived a deep problem. So in my classes, I've had a school principal solving a problem within schools, a speech pathologist solving a problem within speech pathology. Find that those people with lived experience are deeply committed to a problem. and that will help carry them through some really, really tough times as well. I get nervous when someone's deeply committed to a solution because I worry about the coachability.
Yeah.
Big
It's
call.
it's funny is I almost haven't thought it through, but like anger and frustration is something I look for when I'm talking to founders, and it's a genuine frustration with a problem that they want to solve, typically through their own lived experience. And when they start to have those early customer discovery calls, they confide in their customers, and there's no better way to sell than when you're selling to somebody else who had the exact same problem that you had. So starting with that problem space just makes it so much easier. And building an early stage company is a roller coaster. The ones that I've seen have been committed to the problem space and are just like, regardless of if this is going to make them millions of dollars, want to get this problem solved. Those are the ones that I see tend to make it through that roller coaster ride and stick through it through the tough times.
A little chip on the shoulder isn't all bad, is it, Brad?
Nope, not at all.
All right. Should we move to number 9?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Number 9.
All right. So this is where we're talking about those stubborn founders, which is okay, but they're stubborn about the right things. So this is when we get into Techstars, we talk about coachability, right? Like one of the key things that I'm looking for in a founder is a coachable founder. But that doesn't mean behind the scenes that I'm just looking for them to take all of my advice and just run with it. So when you come into a Techstars program, you're going to meet hundreds of folks, and Mentor Madness or Mentor Magic, whatever it's called in your program. You're going to be put around some really, really, really amazing people. For example, here in Chicago, we have the founder of Grubhub that comes in. We'll get a food tech startup that comes in and is just amazed by the founder of Grubhub. He's an incredible guy. But what we want them to do is to take all of that advice and bucket it and say, hey, maybe there's going to be, and you'll see some later in this presentation, how we actually handle that. But we don't want them to just run with that founder's advice, right? So being stubborn is knowing your North Star, really where you want to go, and having principles, but also being flexible along the way. Any anecdotes or stories from you guys in your program?
Yeah, I'll add on. One of the things we all do early on in our programs is we coach founders on testing hypotheses. And so a lot of times, and especially if you're getting all this advice from people and you really don't know, and you put it in the bucket and you really don't know what does make sense, doing a quick test on that and then absolutely following what the data is showing you versus following what someone tells you. So I love this idea of like, be stubborn, but only in the sense of if the data is telling you that that's the way you should go, and really listen again to those customers because they're telling you every day which direction you should be going.
Absolutely.
That's perfectly said, Curdy. Yeah. Really stubborn and really flexible. It's an easy balance to strike.
That's right.
I think it's about taking in new information is what I heard Curdy saying. Are they taking in new information?
That's right. All that information is data. So that's good. Okay. Number 8. We are moving on.
Number 8. Often not talked about, but likability matters when humans are interacting. And it's not that people look for the most fun person or some specific in the personality, but whether you're an investor, a team member thinking about joining, or a customer, everyone at some level is asking themselves, is this someone I can see myself working with for a long time and enjoying it and respecting it? Yeah, while everyone has different personalities and it's subjective, there's a common ground I think almost all people are drawn to, and that's authenticity, and I'll add honesty too. Authentic, honest leaders that are being themselves have this way of rallying people around them, and including customers. Those early pilots are not going to go well, but when you sit down with the founder and you really trust where they're going, and maybe they missed a deadline, they're more forgiving and more flexible. So likability matters, but it's not about who's the most fun. It's about strong relationships. I'm trying to see if Curdy and Brad.
I'll double click on that. Actually, it's really, really important, especially when you're in the early stage. If you go through Techstars or not, a lot of what you're doing early on is meeting a ton of people. And one of the things that it's really easy to slip into is to be transactional. People want to be efficient. They want to, send out multiple emails at the same time. They want to like quickly, in, out, in, out. No, every single connection is a relationship waiting to happen. And the more relationships that you can develop, the more people are out there supporting you and what you're doing across the world. So every person you meet is another relationship and another door opened. And it's really, really important to think about that. Being authentic with people and not being transactional.
Yeah, one quick short story I'll share is one of our most successful companies in Chicago, Reaply, the founder, Gary Cooper, in the early days, the product wasn't great. The customers weren't quite sure why they wanted this quite yet. And they fell in love with Gary. They fell in love with his passion, what he was working on. And although the product wasn't there, they were willing to be these alpha and beta customers for them. And knowing, hey, over time, Gary's so passionate, he listens to me, he's building based on what I'm looking for, that this product's going to get better and I'm going to grow, the company's going to grow alongside Gary. And then he created a flywheel. And through that, was able to, every subsequent conversation, show the logos on the deck, logos growing on the deck. And each conversation got a little bit easier, but it took those first early people that believed in Gary and what he was doing and who he was as a person before he could even get that flywheel spinning. So just think about that. It goes back to Curtie's points on being transactional. Building real relationships from the ground up is going to be ultimately one of the most important things for your business.
That's a big factor, Brad, in Korea, as we put together a class too. I know that we've talked about, as we think about putting together, let's say, a class of 8 companies, always asking ourselves, one of the unfair advantages Techstars founders get are the other companies. It's not necessarily Techstars itself, it's the other 7. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking myself in any investment decision, how are they going to be a support resource to the other companies and vice versa? And we're looking at it as a whole, because they lead this community, this tribe together. So I think selflessness is an important piece as well.
I just went through the Anywhere program in the spring, and that CEO group are still meeting every Friday, and occasionally they let me peek in on their Slack messages, and they're still making intros, high-fiving each other, sharing when they had a bad day, and having others help them resolve what issues they're facing. So I can't stress that piece enough, Dave. It's really magical, and that is the wonder of a small cohort too.
Strongly agree.
Okay, we are moving on to number 7. All right. So deeply understanding your metrics and your business levers. Guys, this can be one of those things where you think, oh, really? Do I have to do OKRs and KPIs? Do I need to measure stuff? I'm telling you, it's like driving. Oops, my earphones are falling. It's like driving your car with a clear windshield or a windshield that has mud on it. It's like, it truly is the difference between seeing and not seeing. And really understanding what to measure is so important. So thinking about things like, if you are, doing something in the consumer space, how is the end consumer finding you? How are they converting? What's their experience? What's the data? Every single comment should be turned into data on, wow, you know what? We have friction over here. We need to fix that friction. If it's B2B, same thing, understanding how the conversion goes from, and where is the friction from a company seeing you for the first time and ending up not just trying you out and sort of getting vibe revenue from them, but actually engaging and loving the product and really understanding what are those levers that are going to show you that you're actually making progress as you go forward. The other thing is, we love to have happy ears. And that's the beauty of data. People will tell you things and you will hear what they say with happy ears. So a customer might be telling you, oh, you know what? This is great. I just wish, it could do X, Y, Z. Or this is great. I had a little trouble getting my team to adopt it. They might just say something on the slide. What you hear is, this is great. And you walk away saying, great, I got more customers. They're excited about what we're building. But what was really valuable was the data that's telling you there's some friction there. So this one, I mean, we hammer this with all of our founders, but I can't stress this enough. I'm sure the others have lots to add.
So much.
So much. Yeah, Curdy, and I know you work with a lot of healthcare companies too. Many of our companies, it takes 12 to 18 months to get a contract signed. And that can be so discouraging to founders, especially if you're not measuring your KPIs along the way. In building a system, building processes, and we'll talk through this a little bit later about building those systems. But if you're not measuring those KPIs along the way, you're only measuring and looking at end contracts, you're never going to know what creates a customer. And if you're actually making progress, or if you're doing all the daily activities that are leading to your success. So as a CEO, as a leader, that's what's going to keep your team motivated through the tough times and these long sales cycles if you're building in one of those types of businesses.
Awesome.
I'll add that if you go through Techstars, you will deeply understand your levers and KPIs. But that's why there's an instinct early on in pre-seed companies to, if you don't fully understand, to BS it a little bit. I would strongly advise against doing that. If you don't know what's driving a certain lever or KPI, I would honestly say, I don't know, but here's how I'm thinking about it, and here's how I'm striving to understand that better. That communicates back to Brad's point on coachability. That brings in coachability
all right,
and honesty, and just not BSing your way through it. If you don't know it, you've made some progress towards getting to know it.
Yep. All right. Let's move to number 6.
All right. This is a fun one. So I'm looking for founders that are strategic with their time. And I put 50 hours a week because I think this has been helpful in program. What we do in our program is we have founders map out their 50 hours a week. I'm quite against hustle culture. There's always been founders that said, I'm putting in 100, I'm putting 120 hours a week. I want to know what those hours look like. Are those quality hours that you're putting in? Are they, the 2 or 3 most important things that need to happen that week, and most of your time is driving towards those things? There are so many hats that you can wear as a founder, and you could stay busy for 80, 100 hours a week doing everything, but none of it's leading to what you actually need to accomplish. So before you worry about how many hours a week you're spending and how hard you're working, break down your calendar and make sure that you're spending the first core, let's call it 40, 50 hours of your week on things that are driving your KPIs forward, right? What are the most important things that you need to be working on? This is crucial. And it allows you to get rid of the noise really quickly. You can quickly see all the things on your calendars that are not driving you towards your KPIs, and you can quickly say no to those things.
One of my founders recently posted on LinkedIn, what is your procrastination activity? So one of the things to think about when you're doing your 50 hours is, guess what? If you love branding, you're going to spend a lot of time doing branding and pictures and redoing your slide decks, etc., because you are avoiding doing cold calls or you're avoiding doing something. So thinking about what's your comfort zone and what's your uncomfortable zone, and thinking about what needs to get done there too. But I love the idea of mapping out what you're actually doing, because again, it's data. You can look back and say, oh yeah, I spent a lot. People who love doing spreadsheets will spend all their time doing financial modeling. They won't talk to customers. So yeah, really good one.
Yeah. This usually manifests itself in quotes you can hear around the Accelerator, but I'm so busy. I'm working so hard. All these are deeply connected. If I think back to the previous slides about goals and KPIs, when I'm in program with founders and we're doing weekly goals, I say no more than 3, because founders love being a millimeter deep on a million things, but you're not making deep progress unless it's on a small number of things.
Yep. All right, we're going to move forward to make sure we get through all 10. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Who, not how. This is, we're starting to get into leadership foundations at this point. And And I don't think a lot of early stage founders think a whole lot about leadership if they're just a 2-3 person team and everyone's doing everything together. But we start to see signs of leadership. A sign that makes me nervous, one side of the coin, is founders can be really, really impressive people. They do a lot of things well, which means they're going to do it all themselves. I can do sales, I can do product, et cetera. Really strong leaders start to look for not solving every problem, but finding the right people to solve problems. That could be through a hire, that could be through a co-founder, that could be through a mentor, that could just be asking for help, which I think asking for help is an incredible sign of confidence. Not asking for help could lean into arrogance. So it's really a leadership principle to kind of keep an eye on those founders that are trying to do everything themselves, because no matter how great they are, at some point they can't scale themselves and they can't scale the day. Yeah. Any cautionary tales, Curdy or Brad, on this one?
No, I would just say, we don't have a hard, fast rule about single founders, but this is one of the reasons why we have to doubly look and make sure that a founder has enough resources to get the job done. Either they've got a killer team around them and they're delegating out to them. But that's why when you hear, do you need a co-founder or not? A lot of times people say, yes, it's not really that, but you have to have a killer team that you can delegate with. So good. Brad, anything to add?
No, just the quick razor here is, if you're spending a week, 2 weeks trying to solve a problem, look to see who else can help you solve that in a day or 2 days, right? Like, you don't need to be the one, you don't need to be the martyr trying to solve this problem for yourself. You have great people around you that can help you get these done quicker.
That's great. All right. We're getting into some of the, oh goodness, my lights just went off. Sorry about that. All right. Consistency. So, and especially with investor updates, but really consistency. So if you are you're not maybe fundraising right now, but you're going to be fundraising in 6 months, an investor and any person who's working with you wants to see consistency. They don't want to see that you communicated with them once and then you drop off the grid for 6 months and you never hear, nothing's heard. What that signals to investors and what that signals to people who want to help you is that you really don't know what you're doing and you're spinning. And it's just a bad signal. Even if stuff is going not as well, having a consistent communication about it, finding what's positive in what you're doing. It also forces you to think about, how do I solve this problem I'm going through? It forces you to reach out and get help where you need it. But communicating consistently with discipline is something that we really instill in all of the founders who go through our programs. And it's something that everyone should think about. People are counting on both those who have invested in you and those who are going to invest in you, want to see that you are moving forward. You're moving your KPIs forward. You're doing the activities you need to do. You are communicating regularly. So can't stress that enough, and transparently.
Yeah. I think a lot of people assume investors are risk takers. We're risk mitigators. And the companies that are constantly showing us what's happening in their business, that mitigates risk for us. If a founder is constantly saying, here's my goal this week, here's what I'm trying to achieve. Oh no, I didn't hit that. Here's what I'm going to try next week. We hit this next week. Okay, cool. Here's my new goal next week. That's how I can build dots along a line and start to understand who these founders are.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Number 3. All right.
All right. This is a big one for me. So you're willing to do 100 tests to see which 1 or 2 work out. I go and talk to students all the time at some of the best universities in the country. They've played by a different game. They've played by a game their whole life where they're getting 98, 99, 100% on everything they've done. And anything less than that is not success. Startups is a completely different game, right? In baseball, we're gonna have some baseball playoffs coming up here. The best hitters in baseball are hitting 300, which means 3 out of every 10 times. In startups, 1 or 2 out of every 100 is great. And you just have to know the rules of the game on the field before you go out and play it. And the founders that go into this game knowing that do a lot better, because we see founders get so discouraged. They've been playing games their whole life where they get everything right. It doesn't work that way in early stage companies. So just knowing the rules of the game on the field and being willing to go through that And it's not just resiliency, it's not just grit, it's just understanding the game you're playing.
100%. Anything to add, Dave?
No, I'm just glad Brad brought the first baseball metaphor into it. I knew it would be Brad to do it.
Of course.
I don't know what the bet was on that.
Yeah. I think this is deeply connected to the number 2 one we're going into as well.
Yes, it is. All right. So we'll move forward to number 2.
And just building on what Brad said, every founder knows at the start of the game that persistence and hustle matters. Everyone knows that rejection is going to be part of the game. It doesn't mean everyone handles it the same. And this is maybe where a little bit of self-awareness comes into, but that you have to make 100 calls to get 2 or 3 meetings. What you maybe don't expect is that kind of hurts. And there's an emotional toll to it too. So just being self-aware and knowing how you do that, sometimes this is what makes or break a founder, is the ability to let it roll off the back, or it starts to take an emotional toll over time. The good news is you can address this. You're not just built a certain way. If you know that it takes an emotional toll, there's actions you can take to recharge your body and not let it. So just as Brad said, just making the awareness of persistence and hustle and in rejection is part of the game, but you get to decide how you handle it. You can't control the rejection, but you can control your response to it all, and that's where it becomes a skill, and it's not just an emotion.
Did you want to jump in, Brad? I was just going to add that failure is data. So a lot of times when you are getting some no's, just check it off as data. And it really takes away some of that sting. And now you're just playing with numbers. I know it sounds easier than done, but it's really important to separate the emotion from the activity that you're doing here. So, yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, no, it is data. I literally just got off a call with one of our founders who has a ton of meetings coming up with investors, and he's starting with the investors that maybe are at the bottom of his list and working his way up so that he can take those learnings. And everything he hears in those early meetings, reservations or anything else, he's going to update his deck, and he's going to go each subsequent meeting. He's going to get a little bit better, take those learnings. So by the time he's at his top 2 to 3 investors that he's really excited about working on, he has all that feedback and he can incorporate it into that meeting. So love founders that are willing to do that and willing to get on 100 phone calls to get 2 or 3. It allows you to get that flywheel spinning. And hopefully over time, those 2 to 3 people that are really excited about what you're doing and what you're working on, they know other people that are really excited about this as well. So that's how you can start to build that community, build that flywheel, and start making it easier and easier over time. It doesn't always get easier. You build a bigger company, things, still are very difficult, but you're starting to find signal within the noise. And that's really the key here.
You can say it, Brad. It's all about at-bats. You can say
it's all about at-bats. He saw me trying to do it.
All right. We're going to move forward to our last one, and we all love this one. Founders who are really successful are constantly listening to their customers. I mean, literally listening every single day, multiple times during the day, and really understanding their pain. Bob Mosta, the principal architect of jobs to be done theory, really leans into when you're focused on the struggling moment, you learn so much. Back to our early focus on the problem, not the solution. You learn so much when you're talking to your customers, and they might be saying, yeah, this is going well, but now this is broken. This over here may have nothing to do with your business today, but guess what? The light bulb goes off and you realize how you can bridge over and help them solve that problem in a different way. But one of our MDs, when I first joined, said, oh yeah, I am having my founders every single day mark off how many customers they're talking to. And it's almost a competition within the cohort. And I continue to do that today. So really, really important here. Talk to customers every single day. All right. And you guys want to add anything? Or Andrea, do you want to come in and say something? I think we're right up at time.
No, well said, Curdy.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe Andrea's not coming. We have any final thoughts, any parting thoughts from our team here?
No, this was a lot of fun. I think take this advice, incorporate it in your business. Here's our contact information. We'd love to hear from you. So if you're interested in the program, even if you're not interested in the program, we're here to support founders. So hopefully that you get at least one little tidbit here that helps you make progress in your business.
Perfect. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks
all
for
for
Take care.
joining. Okay.
I'm just staying out a moment to see if anything's needed.